Hello, class. As we begin this second portion of the course, we are really going to be working on sharpening and refining your problem-solving skill set, which we will look at several different types of problem-solving techniques in the context of word problems, everyone's favorite, in the text Crossing the River with Dogs. Problem solving has been defined as knowing what to do when you don't know what to do. Typically, problem solving involves communicating, gathering information, organizing information, and implementing a plan. We're really going to focus, as I have already mentioned in the first slide, on fine tuning our problem solving skills for the remainder of the class, specifically so you'll feel like you have a wide array of tools in your math pedagogy tool chest so that when you're teaching your students, you can encourage them to explore different approaches, to be patient and persistent as they are working out a problem, and to embrace productive struggle. The goal is to have your students develop and apply broad heuristics. What are broad heuristics? They are discovery-based set of strategies to solve problems, and they just don't come out of nowhere. You have to have some experience with various strategies to be forward-thinking and know what can be employed, how you would implement it. And so it takes practice using these different strategies and seeing the context in which they're usable. So that's what we're going to explore for the remainder of the course. Now, really, collaboration is critical in enhancing students' heuristics because through that use of different math language and through bouncing ideas off of one another, we grow in our ability to see the utility of different techniques. And it also causes different neural connections to be made that wouldn't have been made necessarily in the absence of such discourse. We will have 3 weeks without that discourse, but think of it as like a discourse between myself and you. I will be here providing a lot of examples, some stimulating questions, and then you will be responding to it. So we have a little bit of a virtual conversation going on. But when we get back together, we will be collaborating a lot, working on problems together. One thing that is interesting about this book and the problem-solving approach that you'll see herein is that it departs from the traditional approach of a teacher just working out an example and then the students practicing with exercises. The emphasis is on trying many different types of problems, which are more complex because you haven't seen examples, so you don't have this preconceived notion about how to solve them. This is important to stretching and strengthening students' metacognition to get them to think about their thinking. One chapter might be about one concept, drawing a diagram, for instance, but every problem is going to be different. So you have this large framework, but then you have any number of ways in which you can employ that broad framework. Table of contents in particular, you'll see that each of the chapters is based upon a certain problem-solving strategy. And these chapters have been based on the mathematics research conducted by George Polya. For those of you who've taken Math 123 with me, or for those of you that are middle school candidates, you've taken EDU 330, we looked at the problem-solving strategies that George Polya promotes. And he published a book in 1945 called How to Solve It. And that was where he had all of these different models for how to solve a problem. Polya was a mathematics professor at Stanford for 13 years. And one of his most profound contributions to mathematics was in the area of mathematics education and dealt with a 4-step problem-solving process, which he devised, and it's demonstrated in this book across myriad problems and within every single one of those various strategies. And in this book, there's 17 various strategies, but within all of them, the same 4 steps are employed. You try to understand the problem, wrapping your mind around it, unpacking the main pieces. You devise a plan, and that plan is often going to correspond to one of those 17 approaches. You carry it out, showing procedural fluency. Then you check the solution, making sure that what you have done is correct. Polya's method is the same for all types of problems. The devise a plan part is open to a wide variety of approaches. And I specifically showed that there's 17. And within those 17, there are various ways to deploy and use those. So you're really talking about a ton of different approaches. And we want to honor creative thinking and the fact that we have students that are bringing all different intelligence types and gifts to the classroom and are going to approach a problem in different ways, and that's fine. This really encourages student growth and flexible problem solving, risk taking, and thinking outside of the box. Speaking of thinking outside of the box, I want you to take a moment, pause this presentation, and go to the YouTube video, the link of which is provided on this slide, and watch and try to solve this problem. It will start to stimulate your brain to think outside of the box.
All right, so we're going to take some time and look at how this text is structured. I'm also hoping that my audio sounds less muffled. I did put on a headset, forgetting that you're probably picking up all the background noise with all of my kids running around since we're now homeschooling for 3 weeks. At any rate, I'd like you to turn to page 4 of your textbook because it shows you those dog icons and gives you at least a semblance of an idea of why the text is named what it is. So throughout the text, you're going to see various icons with dogs, and the first one is one that's like sitting, looking up, and it's supposed to be attentive. You're going to see that same dog every time a problem is introduced, and it kind of corresponds to the first part of Polya's problem-solving techniques, which are understand the problem. So you're attentive, and you're really thinking about your thinking regarding the problem. Then the next one is what they call a confused, but I also believe it's an eager looking dog because he looks like he's ready and willing to go wherever he is told to go, wherever his brain tells him to go based on, what the indicators of the problem are. So he's going to be in the midst of the problem solving process. And sometimes we do get confused, but we are still eager to move on. So you'll see that dog wherever there might be some issues related to problem solving and you're trying to work out the process. Whenever there are important steps, you're going to see an oar. That oar is how we cross the river. So every time we are embarking on a problem, it's like we're at the shore and we're trying to get to the other side with this dog in tow. I'm guessing that these authors just have a dog that they love. So at any rate, so the oar indicates important steps in whatever process that we've chosen to use, and it helps us get across the river. That last one really corresponds to the checking solution phase, that fourth phase of Polya's process, and it really encompasses a summary of the whole process. And you can come up with a summary once you've checked your work and you've solidified what you've done. And so you have this dog that's kind of pointing forward and indicating a summary of all the steps. Okay. So I know you were probably hoping that there was some deep meaning behind all these dogs, but that's it. But let's look at the way that this text is written because it's very different than any other text you have written. It's going to feel like you're constantly reading little short stories, and involved in these stories are students. I like it because I feel like it's trying to demonstrate what the collaborative problem-solving process should be like for you, particularly if we were meeting face-to-face, and also in your classrooms for encouraging dialogue, asking good questions, letting students own the process. So it's written like that. And these students that they're going to be talking about are based on real-life students. If you turn to page 13, the text says that the people mentioned in this book are real students who took a problem-solving class at either Sierra College in California or Luther Burbank High School, also in California. In those classes, the students presented their solutions on the board to their classmates. Two of the authors of this book taught those classes. Their students presented their solutions because they felt the other students in the class would benefit greatly from seeing many different approaches to the same problem. They didn't judge each student's solution in any way. Rather, they asked each member of the class to examine the solutions that were presented and decide which approach or approaches were valid or perhaps better. The purpose behind shifting this responsibility from instructor to the students is to give the students practice in evaluating problem solving. That also just increases their comfort level with being wrong because we learn when we are wrong. So this text tries to recreate the same learning atmosphere. Sometimes you'll see several different approaches to a problem, and for the most part, though, those approaches and the resulting solutions aren't ever going to be judged, though through your own reading, you're going to be able to determine, oh, this was the most efficient and slick technique, or this is the one that resonated most with me. The reason they're not judging them is because they want you to be the one who makes that final decision. There are many right ways to solve problems, and you're encouraged to solve the problems in this book more than once using different methods. And in fact, as we move from one chapter to the next, you'll see some problems repeat, and we will explore other alternative ways to solve them. Again, the whole purpose of this class is to just fill your tool chest with more approaches and to make you a more confident problem solver so that you can then transfer that to your future students. Now, this slide says with a friend, try the following problems on pages 9 to 10, numbers 2, 3, and 5. You're going to have to try them independently unless you have a sibling that's at home and would like to try problem solving with you, or unless you are taking a risk and getting together with someone in the class. If we were meeting together, we would discuss the different strategies. What we're going to do is I'd like you to take time to solve them on your own. See what approach you use. And then what I'm going to do in the next 3 slides is go through each and just show one potential way to solve each. So if you look at number 2, it says the capacity of an elevator is either 20 children or 15 adults. If 12 children are currently in the elevator, how many adults can still get in? So there are a couple different ways you can do this. My mind immediately goes to creating a unit rate. Why? Because we need to find out how many adults equal one child so we can work with just one unit instead of 2. Instead of having both adults and children, we need to convert this to 1. So if you have 15 adults to every 20 children and you divide that out and simplify, you get that 3/4 of an adult are equivalent to 1 child. Okay, 3/4 of an adult are equivalent to 1 child. Well, you have 12 children. If we multiply that by 3/4, then what we get is 9, meaning that those 12 children are equal to 9 adults. Well, you can only fit 15 total adults on that elevator. So if those 12 children are equal to 9 adults and you subtract 15 minus 9, you get 6 remaining adults can fit there. So for problem 3, it says there are 8 more women than men in a theater group. The group has a total of 44 members. How many men and how many women are in the group? Now immediately when I read this, I see 2 separate sentences with 2 different variables, but I have some numbers attached there, really stimulating in my mind the desire to set up a system of equations, 2 different equations that are set equal to 2 different things, and that would allow me to use substitution or linear elimination. What would my 2 equations be? There are 8 more women than men in a theater group. Well, you could do a couple things. Women would equal men plus 8, or women minus 8 would equal men. Either of those would work. That would be equation 1, which you see in the solution. Number 2, the group has a total of 44 members, meaning men plus women equals 44. So you see those 2 equations set up right under the solution. Once you have those, it's your choice how you want to solve this. Do you want to use substitution or linear elimination? I chose to use substitution. I used that second equation, m plus w equals 44. I substituted w with m plus 8. That allowed me to gather up like terms. So I have 2m plus 8 equals 44, subtracted the 8, and then divided by 2 so that I get that the number of men is 18. And we know that m plus 8 will give us the w, or number of women, so that would give us 26 women total. So the last problem that you're asked to solve reads as such. If you take a particular 2-digit number, reverse its digits to make a second number, and add these 2 numbers together, their sum will be 121. What is the original number? Well, if it's a 2-digit number, the digits have to be between 2 and 9, right? So that automatically limits the pool. We can't include zeros because then when you reverse them, you don't get a 2-digit number. Okay, so I'm immediately inclined to just start making a list of numbers and using some trial and error with adding to see what will give me 121 with 2 digits, such that when I reverse them and add, I'll get the 121. Now, here's the thing that most students will do. They will find one number that works and then they'll stop. So here are some possibilities: 92 and 29. Because when you add 92 and 29, you get 121. But you're going to have other students find that, hey, wait, no, I got 83 and 38. Yes, that works. Or someone else might say, I got 74 and 47. And finally, another might say, well, how about 65 and 56? Yes, there are many solutions to this. How do you know that you have all of them? Well, there are some patterns that could be revealed if you try to create a model for this. What would the model be? Well, you want to think about place value. So for that first digit, it would be 10 times whatever number 1 through 9 you choose, and then plus the ones column, which we'll call B. So 10A plus B would be the very first original number. When you reverse it, then you're reversing the A and B. So it would be 10B plus A would be the second, okay? So why do we have to multiply by 10? Because remember, that number goes in the tens place, so it needs to carry its place value with it. When you add those two numbers, 10A plus B, and then its reversal, 10B plus A, it has to equal 121. So you see in my solution, I set that model up. When you add together like terms, you get 11A plus 11B equals 121. When you factor out the common 11 and divide, you get that A plus B always has to equal 11. Did I have to create that model algebraically like I did? No. If I would have started to add together and find two numbers, I would have realized, oh, the first two always have to add together to be 11, and I may have come to the conclusion through making that list that, oh, there are more than one possibility. But that does allow me then to just go through my numbers 2 through 9 and find those that would equal 11 so that I could make sure I had an exhaustive list of all the types. Sometimes you ask a student just for one possibility. Sometimes you ask them for all. So if you asked for all, you would want all four, and they would have to realize that those two digits must equal 11. This one's a little bit tricky and hard, but this is the kind of stuff that really gets your students thinking and engaged in the process, and this is where discourse is really helpful. Now, you were shown no strategies. You were just sent out there to try these with what you currently have in your tool chest. But what we're going to do is we're going to now spend each chapter looking at problems like these, but where you're told to use one specific strategy. So you have a little bit of direction now. You're told, hey, you have to use a diagram or you have to make a list. And that's just to hone your skills in that area, but it also gives you a little more comfort because you're told you have to use a specific strategy. Eventually, we want you to just trust your instincts and try some different things and also learn by making mistakes. But this concludes the introductory portion of the text. Now we are going to go ahead and begin the next chapter, which you will pick up in the next PowerPoint.